Important note, all voiceovers in this video are created using AI technology, intended for entertainment/creative purposes only. The video uses images from publicly available sources for illustrative purposes only, and is not intended to infringe copyright. Beneath the headlines of conflict and politics, another Iran exists. One that has been quietly surviving for 12,000 years. You've seen Iran in the news. Nuclear negotiations, political standoffs, headlines that repeat themselves every decade. But there is another Iran that those cameras never found. 7 villages, each one older than the empires that tried to erase it. Each one still inhabited, still cooking, still singing inside volcanic rock, on rooftops that are their neighbor's pathway. And behind doors so low you have to bow your head just to step inside. This is not a story about survival against nature, it is a story about survival with it. How did they do it? 12,000 years, while the greatest empires in history rose and collapsed around them. The answer, it turns out, might be hidden in a door that is only 50 centimeters tall. In the next, we will visit 7 villages that have quietly answered one of the oldest questions in architecture. Not how to conquer the land, but how to be held by it. Kandovan, Masuleh, Abyaneh, Makhunik, Uraman Takht, Palangan, and Maymand. Each one still lived in, each one still breathing. Let's go. In 1984, UNESCO recognized this place as a World Heritage Site. The people who live here didn't pay much attention to that news. They were cooking dinner inside a volcano that went silent 11,000 years ago. The houses here are called Kure, a local word meaning beehive. They weren't built, they were carved directly into compressed volcanic ash that hardened over millions of years into a material called tuff. The walls are 2 meters thick, not because someone designed them that way, because that's how deep the rock needed to be carved before the space inside became livable. 2 meters of compressed volcanic ash between you and a -20 winter. Outside, temperatures in winter drop to -20. Inside the rock, it holds at 18 degrees. No furnace, no insulation, no energy bill, just geology, doing what geology has always done. Each generation carved a little deeper, a little higher. No blueprints, no engineers, just fathers showing sons where the rock gave way and where it held firm. Look closely at the ceiling. That black layer is 1,000 years of cooking smoke. It sounds like damage. It isn't. The soot has sealed the porous rock against moisture. It's a waterproofing system that took a millennium to apply, and it still works. Kandovan didn't conquer the volcano, they moved inside it, and the volcano, in its own way, kept them warm. Kandovan answered one question. What do you do when the mountain is hollow? The next village answered a different one. What do you do when the mountain is a 60-degree wall, and there is no flat ground anywhere in sight? If Kandovan is the answer to a dormant volcano, Masuleh is the answer to a 60-degree slope. The slope here is too steep to build roads, so the village didn't build roads. Every rooftop in Masuleh is also the path for the house above it. To get to the market, you walk across your neighbor's ceiling. Think about what that requires. Not just engineering, trust. Every morning someone walks across your roof to go to work. That arrangement has held for 700 years. No contract signed, no liability clause, just the quiet understanding that the roof I build will hold the weight of my neighbor's steps. The women here still speak Talish, a language older than modern Persian. They cook ash soup, a thick broth that simmers for hours on a wood fire, not because there is no other option, because that's how it's always been done, and it still tastes right. Masuleh wasn't planned by an architect, it was negotiated. Slowly, over centuries between 500 families and a mountain that refused to flatten itself. No roads because the mountain had no room for them. So they turned architecture into community. And the rooftop became the most democratic path in the world. Kandovan found its answer inside the rock. Masuleh found its answer on top of it. But 5 more villages remain, and each one faced a problem that neither of these two ever had to solve. 2,500 years ago, people chose this hillside to build a village. What they built with was not bricks or timber, it was the mountain itself. It's soil, it's iron, it's rust. The soil here has an unusually high concentration of iron oxide, the same mineral that makes Mars look red. The more it rains, the harder the walls become. Abyaneh's houses don't weather, they petrify. The women here still wear the traditional rose-patterned chador, not for visitors, not for photographs, because that is how they dress. The tradition is alive not because it was preserved, but because it was never abandoned. Every front door in Abyaneh has 2 door knockers. Each one makes a different sound, one for men, one for women, so the family inside knows before opening the door who is standing on the other side. No camera, no intercom, 2 pieces of iron. Abyaneh didn't preserve tradition for tourists. They kept it because it still works. The red walls, the rose chador, the 2 knocker door, each one a quiet answer to a question nobody thought to ask. Abyaneh teaches you to read color and sound. The next village will teach you to bow, in the most literal sense possible. Makhunik, South Khorasan Province, Iran. Nearest city, 4 hours by dirt road. Height of the front door, 50 centimeters. The houses here are built 1 meter below ground level. The roof meets the earth. The door is 50 centimeters tall. This is not unusual architecture. This is the answer to 2 problems. Winter winds that can reach 80 kilometers per hour, and a summer sun that turns the desert surface into a griddle. The door is not small because the builders were small. It is small because whoever enters, king or farmer, stranger or neighbor, must bow. The bow is not optional. It is built into the architecture. The people of Makhunik once lived almost entirely on a diet of jujube, wild berries that grew here without cultivation. They bought almost nothing from outside, not because they couldn't, because buying from outside was considered a kind of moral compromise. Makhunik didn't build a low door by accident. They built the bow into the architecture. Every person who has ever entered this village, every guest, every stranger, every returning son, has bent their back before crossing this threshold. That is not custom, that is philosophy, made from mud and stone. The bow is built into the door. But what happens when you build the bow into the stone itself, into walls that have survived earthquakes for 1,000 years without a drop of mortar? The next village will show you. Uraman Takht, Kurdistan Province, northwestern Iran. In 2021, UNESCO added this village to its intangible cultural heritage list, not for its buildings, for the knowledge of how they were built. Every wall in this village was assembled by hand, without mortar, without cement, without any binding material at all, just stone, placed upon stone, with a precision that took thousands of years to develop, a technique called dry stone walling. The walls have survived hundreds of small earthquakes, not despite the lack of mortar, because of it. A wall with mortar is rigid, a wall without mortar can breathe. When the earth trembles, the stones shift just enough to absorb the force, and then settle back into place, the same way a human body bends in wind and does not break. Uraman Takht is a staircase village. Each tier of houses is a step up the mountain. The mountain dictated the architecture, and the architecture followed without resistance, not a single drop of mortar. Still standing after 1,000 years of trembling earth, that is not luck. That is the accumulated knowledge of every generation that chose precision over shortcuts. Uraman Takht didn't build against the mountain, they built with it, one carefully placed stone at a time. The next village didn't build with stone, they built with sound. There is a village in the Kurdish mountains, where the only way to reach your neighbor is to walk across the roof of a stranger, and nobody considers that strange. Palangan is built on both sides of a steep gorge. The river runs between them. There are no flat roads, so the community built upward, stacking houses on both cliff faces, connecting them with stone bridges that have stood for centuries. More than 20 natural mineral springs flow through this gorge. The community didn't pipe the water in. The water was already there. They built around it, and the springs have provided heat, mineral-rich water and natural irrigation for thousands of years. Zero energy, zero infrastructure, zero cost. And then there is the Hurai. The Hurai is a traditional Kurdish vocal form, a call sung from one side of the gorge to the other. Not a performance, not a ceremony, a conversation. The mountains pick up the sound, carry it across the canyon, and return it to the opposite cliff as an echo that outlasts the original voice. The moment the Hurai crosses the gorge, the mountain completes the song. The village didn't conquer the acoustics of the landscape. They composed with them. Palangan didn't fill the silence. They listened to what the silence already contained, and they sang back. The next village didn't build with sound, they built with time. Maymand, Kerman province, southern Iran. 12,000 years, that is how long people have lived in this valley, without interruption, without abandonment, without starting over. The oldest continuously inhabited village on Earth that historians can verify with certainty. The homes here are carved 9 meters into the bedrock, not clinging to the surface of the earth, but pulled into its interior, below the frost line, below the wind, below the reach of any surface temperature that shifts with the seasons. In winter, the residents descend into the rock, where the geothermal warmth of the earth itself holds the temperature at 18 degrees, while the surface freezes. In summer, they climb to higher ground, and sleep under open skies. They have been migrating between these two elevations, vertically, within their own valley, for 12 millennia. They did not develop this pattern through theory. They developed it through 12,000 years of watching what the land offered, and accepting the offer. Look at one image, a single figure, seated at the entrance to a cave. Inside, an oil lamp burns. Above, a thin thread of smoke rises from a ventilation hole carved in the stone. 12,000 years of human knowledge, held in a breath of smoke rising from rock. The empires that rose and fell around this valley, Achaemenid, Parthian, Sassanid, Mongol, Safavid, are now studied in textbooks. Maymand is still cooking dinner. 7 villages, 1 answer. The answer was never about conquest.
Every village we visited today solved a different problem. Kandovan, the cold inside the volcano. Masuleh, the slope that refused to flatten. Abyaneh, the sun and the wind, and the social code that held the community together. Makhunik, the desert that stripped everything to its essentials. Uraman Takht, the earth that trembled and demanded precision. Palangan, the gorge that divided, and the song that crossed it. Maymand, 12,000 years of uninterrupted presence. Different problems. One principle. Observe the land before you build. Work with what is already there. And when the land asks you to bow, bow. The door in Makhunik is 50 centimeters tall. Every person who has entered that village for the last 1,000 years has bowed their head before crossing the threshold. Not to the doorframe. To the idea that living well in a place requires a kind of humility that no amount of concrete can replace. This is not a lesson from the past. These villages are not ruins. They are living answers to a question that the modern world is still getting wrong. No politics, no conflict, just 12,000 years of quiet, unbroken survival. If this kind of documentary speaks to you, subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll take you somewhere equally extraordinary next time.